Good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar entitled How AI Technology is Allowing Clinicians to Redefine the Patient-Provider Experience. My name is Mark Haglund, and I'm Editor-in-Chief of Healthcare Innovation. Today's program is sponsored by Nuance. Thank you so much to the folks at Nuance and to you in our audience for giving us your time and attention today. Before we get started, I just have a few housekeeping details to share with you. To submit a question, please use the Q&A box to the left of your video window at any time. You do not have to wait until the end of the program. For technical issues, please press F5 to refresh, and if that doesn't work, you can submit a question for your issue to the Q&A panel. Finally, join our webinar conversation on Twitter. You can tweet using the hashtag #HILiveWebinar. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker. Pardon me. Dr. Jared Pello, MD, is Chief Medical Information Officer of Ambient Clinical Intelligence at Nuance Healthcare. Dr. Pello is an emergency medicine physician, a proven leader, and an innovator. Along with his partners, he founded iScribes, Inc., an ambient clinical documentation company, which was acquired by Nuance in 2017. Dr. Pello took iScribes from ideation to execution to solve clinical documentation challenges, serving over 250 physicians before it was acquired. He helps lead the ambient clinical intelligence team at Nuance, where he is a function leader and CMIO. His passion is the intersection of technology and healthcare, and how technology, especially artificial intelligence, can make healthcare more functional and efficient. And now, with that, I welcome Dr. Pello as our speaker. Welcome.
Thank you, Mark. I'm happy to be here.
And it's all yours.
All right, thank you. So I'll echo Mark's sentiments that I'm really grateful to everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules and your day to spend with us as we talk about what I believe is one of the most exciting, interesting innovations in healthcare, and that is using AI technology to redefine the patient-provider experience and really return providers to the place they want to be, at the bedside, eye to eye with their patients, making important decisions with their patients, and really delivering great care. Healthcare Innovation did a survey for us, and one of the things that they discovered in the survey is that 62% of those surveyed agreed that COVID-19 and the pandemic and the shift to virtual care have heightened the need for what we call ambient clinical intelligence. And that's AI intelligence that is listening in an ambient way, able to deliver value to that relationship, that patient-physician relationship. And at Nuance, we really believe the time is now to approach the challenges of today with highly efficient tools. We know that burnout, it has been a problem for, we've been talking about burnout for a decade now. And for myself, burnout really was fast coming. I remember 3 years into practicing medicine, speaking with one of my partners and asking him, who I saw as the happiest person in my group, how he came to work so happy each day. And he told me that every day that he was off, he dreaded coming back to work. And what I learned that day was never ask him for a pep talk, number one. Number two, though, what he told me is that there was hope, and that people who seem to focus on making healthcare better, whether that was going into administration or building a business that could make healthcare better, seemed to be really happy. And for me, I tried administration, and for all of you out working in administration, I tip my hat. That is a difficult job. It is hard. Your hours and minutes and days are spent on hard problems. And I tackled it through business and trying to build a technology that could that could reach hundreds of thousands of doctors, and why I'm at Nuance today, because I believe that we can tackle this burnout problem, that it's not hopeless, and that, as was seen with virtual care during COVID, technology can actually be an enabler. And at Nuance, we really believe that we're building technology that can be an enabler to that patient-physician relationship. Now, we know that now more than ever, hospitals, health systems, practices are running into cash flow and budget challenges. You know, many elective procedures have had to be postponed. Some places are seeing patient censuses drop, while others are having capacity issues, as we know we're having in our ICUs and in our hospitals. And so we're having the requirement that we've had, it seems like for so long now in healthcare, to do more with less. But for some reason that continues. We keep thinking that we've been kind of squeezed to the limit, but then we get squeezed some more, and which is understandable. What we deliver is vitally important. What you all deliver is vitally important, and we need to try to make it more affordable. And so it's understandable that it happens, but it is happening and it's difficult to deal with. And we believe that ambient clinical intelligence answers these three key challenges. And I want to speak to what we deliver. We deliver a product called Dragon Ambient Experience. And what DAX does is it captures the natural conversation between a doctor and a patient in a very non-invasive way. This could be with an iOS device or an ambient device on the wall, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, where we're able to capture the complete audio of that conversation, send it to our HIPAA-compliant cloud, and transform that using AI into a complete clinical note. And that is the magic of DAX. We take one of the largest administrative burdens, one of the administrative burdens that is complained about most, and one of the administrative burdens that takes the physician and turns their back to the patient often. We take that out of the room, and we deliver that in an automated, highly scalable way. So we rolled this out, DAX, in February, March of this year, right before the pandemic hit. And of course, it was something that we'd been building towards for years. Myself, since 2014, have been working on this problem, and Nuance started working on the problem around the same time. And so we were really excited to get DAX out into the field and see, you know, what is the actual impact of what we're delivering. And what we've found is that DAX has lots of different benefits and adds to the efficiencies where we wanted it to, and we were pleasantly surprised by some of this. You know, we saw that there was a reduction in provider and care team burnout, and I'm going to show some numbers that talk directly to that in just a minute. We also saw that there was an increase in accuracy, operating efficiency, and throughput. And one of the things that we learned from the survey that we did with Healthcare Innovation is that 71% of leaders believe that ACI, Ambient Clinical Intelligence, allows clinicians to focus on patient care. And 83% said it improves productivity. And that's exactly what we were driving towards, was that, you know, battling burnout, battling the distraction of the clinician from the patient, and increasing the efficiency of the system. And we've also been able to see an acceleration of the revenue cycle, since physicians' notes are finished the same day. And we've been able to build all of this on a single cloud platform that, you know, our Dragon Medical One lives on the same cloud platform, and we're able to deliver Dragon Ambient Experience through that same cloud platform. And so as you think about, you know, what can DAX do for you and your health system, these are some of the benefits that we've seen. We also learned from the survey that 85% of respondents agree that by enabling more thorough and timely documentation, that ACI can have a positive impact on the reimbursement at their organizations. So those are the survey results, but what are the real world results? So the real world results are these, that, you know, before DACs at the institutions where we've done our white paper, which is extremely interesting and you're welcome to go look at on our website, that 3 out of 4 physicians felt burnout and fatigue of those that we onboarded. And of course, we target and we ask our health systems to target those who are feeling most burdened. And we saw that only 1 out of 5 felt burnout and fatigue after using DACs. And we also saw that 76% of those who used DACs felt like there was an improved quality of the patient experience. We saw physicians saving 6 minutes per patient encounter. And so you can imagine, if you're a busy family physician seeing 20 patients a day, and we just saved you 2 hours out of your day that you would have had to spend doing documentation, and you maybe were trying to fit that in between patients, which led to a very stressful day and long wait times for your patients, or you were doing it at night and it was taking you away from the other things outside of the hospital or the clinic that you love to do, that when you receive those 2 hours back into your life, how life-changing that can be. And now, not only did we see that kind of improvement in burnout, but we saw this improvement in efficiency with 24% increase in the number of patients a cardiologist could see per day using DAC. So you can imagine that, yes, this can help drive efficiency and help solve for burnout. And 85% of physicians across all the specialties recommend Nuance DACs to a colleague. And for a primary care patient who's, you know, sitting in the waiting room, we were able to decrease that wait by 9 minutes and really cut in half the industry average of wait times for patients in those waiting rooms. And those are the type of real world impacts that we, you know, with a product that hasn't even been out a year yet, to be able to see those kind of real world impacts and think about, you know, what about when DACs is scaled across not just thousands of physicians, but hundreds of thousands of physicians? What kind of efficiencies can you see in a healthcare system across the U.S., in healthcare systems as entire entities? You know, we can see some very bright futures ahead with all of these things. So we believe that DACs is really also just at the beginning of where we want to go. Now, Nuance is the innovator that has been leading conversational AI in healthcare since the 90s. Dragon Medical One, the best front-end speech engine that is out there. You know, we also power PowerScribe, which almost every radiologist in the US uses for their front-end speech. And we're following a very similar playbook with Dragon Ambient Experience. And that playbook includes going from somewhat of a manual process, like we did with transcription, into speech recognition, and then adding more value to it along this timeline. So we already have voice command and control and virtual assistants working within our products. Dragon Medical One already has virtual assistant integration with UpToDate and MD Calc and other interesting places where you can receive clinical guidance with just some words. And we're able to add on now some real ambient clinical intelligence where you don't have to be speaking directly to the computer. You can focus and speak directly to your patient and start receiving value from that, which is very exciting. I mean, people talk about it all the time. Is this the time where we start moving into what we watched on Star Trek, where you talk to the computer? And I would say it's even a step above that, because we're talking about you don't even have to direct your question at the computer. The computer is just going to start giving you insights at the right time. And it's really about the right data at the right time. Physicians have too much data as it is sometimes because it's so hard to dig through. And what we believe our job is to really bring the right data at the right time. And I spoke a little bit about the roadmap that we're on right now, and I'll speak to it a little bit more. So this year we rolled out our ambient documentation through Dragon Ambient Experience, and this documentation is delivered directly into your EHR. The audio is captured with the mobile application and or an ambient device. And we've been able to automate that documentation, and we can build great narrative. I often, when I show providers the technology the first time, they're blown away by the ability for the computer to write a clean narrative. Often what I'll hear is, I don't want an entire transcript of the patient conversation with me. Lots of times I'll ask my patients about their work, their kids, their hobbies, and I don't want that in the note. And the amazing thing is that Dragon Ambient Experience can listen to all of those things and pull out the clinically relevant pieces and write a really great narrative note, as well as pull out those discrete data points that you're interested in. If it's you talking about an order, you talking about a diagnosis, past medical history, findings, Dragon Ambient Experience can pull those things out. Now, we put that ambient documentation through an AI learning loop, and we do that with a human being today. We've tested taking our AI directly to clinicians, and what we've found is that sometimes clinicians won't change as much as they should, or they might sign off on it without doing a thorough check. Now, of course, that's not every clinician, but what that's taught us, and we learned this also through our back-end speech innovation back when we started giving speech recognition to transcriptionists, is that we need to get the AI to a certain quality level before we start giving it directly to the physicians, just like we've done with DMO. You know, our error rate is extremely low for clinicians today. And so it's really important to do that same kind of delivery of high quality AI for clinical documentation. Then the next step in our kind of roadmap is past that ambient skills and into the skills marketplace, where as a health system, you can start building out skills that you want delivered for you. So somewhat like we've all learned with, you know, Alexa and Google Home, the ability to build out skills for ambient devices and virtual assistants, Nuance is also providing a platform where you're able to build out skills that you want to deliver to your clinicians at the right time. And whether that's using, you know, some sort of calculator that is specific to your healthcare setting. So if you want to use, you know, for head CT usage in your hospital and implement the PCARN scoring for pediatric children, pediatrics and their head injuries, you can build in skills directly into the virtual assistant to help with that. Now, we started this year with only a few specialties that we were supporting, only 5 specialties at the beginning of this year, but we've rolled that out and expanded it greatly since then. And we cover every ambulatory specialty now, except for behavioral health. Otherwise, every ambulatory specialty is covered by Dragon Ambient Experience. And when I say covered, what I mean is we have the expertise to review the AI notes or to generate the notes and place them directly in the EHR for the clinician so that they can sign off on those notes at their convenience. Now, the way that works today is there is a 4-hour turnaround time for that because we send it through the AI learning loop, which is our quality documentation specialist who checks up on the quality of the note, makes any corrections, and then places the note directly in the EHR. What we've found is that most of those turnaround times are really 1 to 2 hours, but our SLA is for 4 hours. And so what does the AI note look like compared to the finished quality reviewed note? This is an example that you're seeing on your screens now of what that might look like. So on the far left, you're seeing what the conversation is looking like. And this is exactly how we build the notes. So the notes go through a speech recognition engine, or the audio goes through a speech recognition engine, where we separate out the physician speaking from the patient speaking. And we're able to use voice biometrics to know who is speaking when. And then we send that cleaned up transcript through our AI note writing system, and it outputs a note exactly like you see on the left. Now, if you read that note closely, you'll notice some errors, and you don't have the full conversation, so you won't catch all of the errors as you read that note, but there are some errors in that note. And so it goes through the quality review process, and then the note is placed directly in the EHR. So a little bit more about how it works, and I've spoken about the mobile device and the mobile app and the wall-mounted ambient device. I'm going to speak quickly about the ambient device right now, but I'm going to speak more about it later. The ambient device is extremely neat. It has many microphones, it has touch screen, it has ability to engage with our virtual assistant. We start all of our health systems and clinics that begin with Dragon Ambient Experience right on the mobile application, because we can generally go from signing a contract to getting somebody up and running on Dragon Ambient Experience in 4 weeks. And so part of that is we'll wait for any kind of infrastructure or anything else that's needed for the wall-mounted device until you've actually tested the benefit with the mobile device, because it's such an easy lift to get started. We'll go ahead and get you started, and you have the ability to capture the complete conversation with the mobile device. And I'll often hear concerns about, is the audio quality good enough? And of course, we all have phone calls where we have bad audio. The really cool thing about capturing directly onto a mobile device where you're not streaming, because we capture it locally on the device, is you can really increase the quality of the audio. So we get a very high quality audio, and we've tested where, somebody could be standing 12 feet away with their back turned to the mobile device, and we'll still capture audio that's good enough to run the AI. So as far as can we do it with just the smartphone to get started, we absolutely can, and we're able to show that value right away. Now, everything changed this last March when we initially had our lockdown with COVID, and it switched to a virtual care setting. And what we learned quickly, and what our research team was able to move on extremely quickly, was tuning our mobile application, the microphones, the audio, to be able to capture directly from the speakers on the computer the patient voice, and continue to deliver a really great experience for Dragon Ambient Experience. So you can use any video platform, any telehealth platform. We can capture the audio through the computer speakers, and we can deliver the same quality of ambient documentation. Now, we have a partnership with Microsoft that we announced also earlier this year. That partnership is deep. It's for development of all of Dragon Ambient Experience. And because of that partnership, we were able to move very quickly with Microsoft Teams, which was also announced this year as a telehealth platform. And we are directly integrated into Microsoft Teams, meaning you don't have to even use the mobile app. You can join a Microsoft Teams telehealth meeting and turn on DAX, record the complete audio from that conversation, which uploads directly to our AI cloud and produces the note. Now, I know up to this point, this all might sound a little nebulous, and if after this, it's still a little nebulous in your head, please reach out to us. We're happy to set up a demo and actually show you the technology. And we absolutely will. We'll show you behind the curtains and let you dig in, and even let you play with it so that you understand what's going on. But I want to show a graphic that maybe gives a little bit more insight into what is going on. So I explained this verbally, but this you can see in more of a graphical sense of the audio being captured from the patient and the provider. That's through the mobile device or the ambient device, going through our AI cloud, where we're able to produce a really clean transcript separated out into provider and patient conversation, and then generating a clinical note through our AI, going through that quality review process, and then going directly to the EHR for your providers to sign off on. Now, we know that quality documentation includes several different things. One of those things is the right story, the right data points, and the clinician is uniquely trained to know what those things are. What are the pertinent positives and pertinent negatives? But we also know that there are compliance issues that we need to keep. There are other, standards that we need to produce our documentation by. And we use HDI standards, CMS standards. We of course, are ready for all of the changes for ambulatory care for 2021 with CMS guidelines and the AMA recommendations on E&M billing and coding. We take all of that into account to deliver really high quality notes. And the first question that we'll ask a provider is if they're happy with the templates that they're currently using to create their documentation. If the answer is yes, then we will look at them, and where possible or necessary, we'll add value to them, meaning that we'll help them become more clear or more complete. If they say no, then we actually have the templates built out in such a way that we can share with them these really high quality templates. Now, when I say templates, think of it as, where are the different pieces of the note? These aren't templates like fill in the blank. These are templates of how the note is ordered, how it's formatted, text, etc., to make them very clear and understandable. So I spoke about this roadmap where we are delivering more than just ambient documentation. And so I want to give you a little bit more detail into what that means. Now, the ambient device, which I mentioned, is displayed here in this image. And there are all sorts of cutting edge technologies here. We have 16 microphones that are able to use a software called beamforming, where you're actually able to focus any number of microphones, that can be one to many microphones, on a speaker. And what this means is you could have 4 people speaking at the exact same time, and those 4 people could have different microphones facing them, and we would have extremely clear audio from those 4 people speaking at the same time in the room. And that allows us to build a really clean transcript. We also have this large interactive touch display, which is an extension of the EHR. We're able to pull some of the important data that's in the EHR and put it on that screen so that it is visible for the clinician as they take care of their patient. We have an integrated machine vision module, which means that we're able to see a heat map of the physician and the patient, directing those microphones to the right place so that we can get that clear audio. We have biometric support. If any of you use biometric support for logging into your bank account or your retirement account, that is likely Nuance technology. And we're able to use that same technology in Dragon Ambient Experience. And then lastly, as we all know, virtual assistants became much more interesting to all of us as they became ambient. And we're able to use that same kind of ambient workflow that you got used to at home for setting a timer or adding something to your shopping list. You can start using the Hey Dragon functionality to do similar things within your EHR that you might want to do, like, Hey Dragon, pull up the list of medications. Hey Dragon, what are the patient's allergies? Hey Dragon, order a CBC. Able to start delivering that kind of functionality in an ambient way, bringing the technology that you used to in the consumer space and making it available for you in the healthcare space, which is a lot more difficult because it takes a lot more into account. You have to have security and verification and make sure everything works the right way at the right time. So I started speaking to some of these ambient skills, and I want to speak a little bit more to them. We're working with different partners, and some of those are partners on the EHR side. So whether that is Epic or Cerner or Meditech or any of our EHR partners the ability to use ambient skills and directly do things within the EHR. We're also working with providers of content like UpToDate to be able to deliver the right information at the right time. And you're able to do this in a very clear, easy way. And it will allow, as we know about kind of the changes in documentation in the ambulatory space over the next year, it'll allow and start to enable care teams to work together on documentation of their patients and deliver value even outside of just that physician-facing patient interaction. The last thing I'll speak to is the ability for the ambient device to be used for many other things that might not always be obvious. You know, whether that is watching for hand hygiene from staff, or doing a depression screening with your patient from their voice, or fall detection, or translation services. This device becomes part of your clinic. It's one of the tools in your clinic, and you're able to deliver more value than just using it for documentation, which of course makes the value of DAX even deeper in the ecosystem for the health system and what you're able to do. Now, there are many AI companies out there. There's none within healthcare that have the expertise of Nuance. But what was really exciting to us over this last year is that we were able to bring the foremost AI leader in the world with Microsoft and bring them on board. And this is an exclusive partnership where Microsoft is not going after documentation in healthcare at all, other than in this partnership with Nuance and Dragon Ambient Experience, which means that we're combining the best of both companies. We're bringing Nuance's healthcare expertise and our ability in conversational AI, along with Microsoft's AI cloud and everything they've learned over the decades in technology and AI, and we're able to deliver that together, which means that you're going to have automation with Nuance than you're going to have with other startups or AI companies that are trying to tackle the same problem. We also are extremely well respected just in the medical space, and that's why AMA has partnered with us to see how we can work together in empowering physicians with the right data at the right time for clinical decisions. And then, as I spoke to, we have these deep EHR partnerships where the EHR knows, they've heard from you, from physicians, that the EHR has been a burden up to this point for some things. And they work with us extremely closely because they see so many of the issues that they hear about from day to day disappearing with the use of Dragon Ambient Experience and the use of the virtual assistant and the ability to control kind of all the intelligence that they've built in, whether that is just simple intelligence of, you know, medication interactions, or if it's more deep intelligence of healthcare maintenance and other things that they're building into their EHRs. You're able to leverage that with just your voice and in an ambient way. And EHRs know that makes their software better. And when it's better, you have better outcomes with your patients. And that's what we all want in the end. Now, we believe that the nuance difference are these three things that I've spoken about. It's really our deep expertise in healthcare. It's the expertise we have in AI technology, which in healthcare is unsurpassed. And then the deep integration directly into the EHR. Our ability to deliver this value to the healthcare system, but most importantly, deliver this value to the doctor-patient relationship. And the amazing thing we've seen over the last, 8 months as we've rolled out Dragon Ambient Experience is we receive notes from our physicians where they thank us because they were going to retire and they've decided to practice 5 more years. Or one of my favorites was from a physician saying that his wife wanted to send us a thank you note because we had saved their marriage. And what we need to remember is that what's most important are the people in healthcare. And that's both sides of the equation, the caregiver and the one receiving care. And we have to take care of both. And we believe that Dragon Ambient Experience delivers that value on both sides. And with that, I'll wrap up and see what questions Mark has for me.
That was so terrific. Thank you so much. I learned a great deal. I do have a number of questions for you, but if it's okay, I think I'd like to just quickly have you respond to, we have several questions from the audience, and then we can converse just a little bit. Is that okay?
Sounds great. Yep, that's perfect.
Great. So here's the first question from the audience. Can DAX link directly to computer-assisted coding?
So the way it works today is any systems that you have running in your EHR should still work. So if you have computer-assisted coding working today or using some CDI type functionality, it can run on top of what DAX does. At Nuance, of course, we have our own kind of computer-assisted coding functionality, and we're building those to become what run right now somewhat as parallel systems to become more and more integrated. So you'll see that computer-assisted coding kind of being built in from the foundation as we go forward, but we are not there yet. So they run kind of on top of each other today.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question from the audience. I'm sure you'll know what they're referring to. Will that 4-hour window always be there?
No, that's a good question, but the answer is no. The 4-hour window will not always be there. I think what we'll find is there is some sort of, we'll see there's a subset of patient visits that can automate pretty quickly. And these are going to be patient visits that are more routine, that are easier, and it doesn't necessarily mean specialties that you might think of as less complex will be the only ones that automate. It'll be those visits that are done more frequently will automate first. But I think just like we've seen with TurboTax not getting rid of accountants, I think there will still be quality review system in place for some visits, meaning that, you know, for more complicated visits and for more rare types of diagnoses, we will probably have some sort of 4-hour turnaround time or something in there for some subset of visits. But I would expect real-time turnaround for others, and we'll be there relatively soon. I don't want to, you know, spoil any surprises that we might have in store for the industry in the future, but it's not that far off that we're going to start delivering notes in near real time.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Another audience question. This audience member says, this looks great for orthopedics, but for hospital medicine or critical care, the notes are more complex, and there's often discussion of medical decision-making. Has this been tackled?
Yeah, that's a really great point. You know, so the great thing about DAX is it's flexible and it can do really anything. If we're talking about hospital medicine or critical care medicine, a lot of the complexity that lives there that we haven't tackled yet today lies within the system of working inside a hospital. So the medical part of critical care medicine, hospitalist medicine, absolutely DAX can tackle today, but we don't because of all the other systems that need to be in place to be able to go into the hospital. But we do tackle really complex patients, really complex patient visits, you know, hour-long neurology visits with intake, with newly diagnosed ALS or multiple sclerosis or any other number of problems or, complicated comorbidity, internal medicine patients. We can tackle all of those things and for sure cover medical decision making. As we know, that's more and more important and the focus for our documentation this coming year. So that was a really kind of meandering answer, but yes, we can cover the multiple specialties, difficult patients, and medical decision making.
Oh no, that didn't feel meandering at all. That felt very concise, actually. So no, it was great. So another audience question that relates in a way to that one: what about complex patients with multiple medical problems and medications? I think you kind of semi-answered that already, but is there anything that you'd like to kind of tack onto that?
Yeah, well, the thing I would add to it is I think what I would want a clinician to understand about it is we do rely on the clinician telling the patient certain things. And so we see better output from the AI when the clinician is more willing to spend time explaining things to the patient. So if you had somebody with 5 ongoing problems, they've got diabetes and hypertension and some coronary artery disease and hyperlipidemia and congestive heart failure, say they've got all those things going on, what we find is we get the best output when a clinician says, you know what, for your hypertension, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And for your diabetes, it's stable. I don't need to do anything. For your congestive heart failure, I'm going to do ABC. So what we find is that we do need clinicians to explain things to their patients. And that's why we actually see this increase in Press Ganey scores from patients saying, my provider spent more time with me, even though that visit may not have been longer. The patient feels like they had a more interactive conversation with their physician. So in the end, complex patients definitely can be handled. We just need the physician to really be willing to engage with their patient in the whole medical decision-making and medical care delivery conversation.
That makes sense. Thank you very much. Another audience question: does this work in a VDI-hosted EHR environment?
So let me try to answer that one. So if we're talking about VDI itself and not like remote desktop or something like that, then absolutely this will work. There are some kind of, in smaller clinics today where we see vulnerabilities with kind of remote access to EHRs where it won't work perfectly because there are some kind of security risks there that we aren't willing to kind of go against industry best standards. But if we're talking about a true VDI experience where it's hosted in a really secure environment, then absolutely, this will work in a VDI-hosted EHR environment.
Wonderful. Okay, we have 2 more audience questions, and I'd like to have a brief conversation and kind of help you to summarize and wrap. One is, how does the system do with patients who have accents? What about the use of interpreters?
Yeah, that is a really important question, and especially depending on where you practice medicine, right? So for myself, I'm a Spanish speaker, and so when I enter the room and I'm speaking with a Spanish-speaking patient, I don't necessarily need an interpreter, and I want to be able to have a conversation with them in Spanish. The way DAX works today, it is only English. So the conversation would need to be summarized in English, and I've actually done this workflow with other physicians where we will, have a conversation in Spanish and then summarize quickly as we go along in English, kind of calling out what are the patient's pertinent positives and negatives in their story, in their exam, etc. And what's really interesting to see is that the AI is able to work with that. that, you know, the AI doesn't, because the way the system is built today, it doesn't know what to do necessarily with the Spanish words, but the English words that it's able to capture, it's able to make sense and to start writing the note. And then we have the quality documentation specialist who will clean it up and fix it. So that's the kind of, it doesn't cover anything but English. You do need to either translate it yourself if you're somebody who can speak the language, or you need an interpreter to be the voice of the patient. And then as far as accents, you know, Dragon Medical One is really the best front-end speech handling any English-speaking accent. And that's because the millions of hours of speech recognition that we've been able to do across accents. And you'll often hear people with accents that are somewhat difficult to understand at times say Dragon Medical One does a better job understanding me than my kids or my patients or my wife. And so it's really, really good at accents.
Well, that's good. Perhaps someday it might be able to work in Spanish. That would be a really amazing thing, I think.
Oh, absolutely. We'll get there for sure. I'm not going to say a timeline, but we will be at a point where we can do any language.
Great. And one other audience member asked something that I think you already discussed this in your presentation, but they asked, how does it deal with the social part of the visits? And I think you already mentioned that it just processes them and then handles them, right?
Yeah, and what's interesting though is lots of physicians, they find value in taking some notes of that, right? Like they like to take a little note that says, you know, their dog's name is Millie, and you're actually able to train the system if what you want is some sort of social cue, you know, you can say something like, hey, Dragon, remind me to ask about their dog next time. Or something like that, and we can train the system to pull out those interesting social facts that you might want to remember when you see that patient the next time. So all the discussion about the fishing trip they took to Yellowstone, that's going to be ignored. You're going to get a highly relevant note. But if there are little social facts that you want to remember when you see that patient next time, absolutely we can help you capture that and keep that conversation going.
That's actually really good to know. Thank you. So let me just ask you a little bit about the physician cultural, not cultural culture, but the physician culture aspect of this. Everything that you've talked about is so important. And it seems to me that one of the things that DAX is going to really help with is to really help physicians refocus their energies on the practice of medicine, but also perhaps, you know, kind of improve attitudes towards all the things that physicians need to do to support value-based care and quality measurement. Because right now there is so much, physicians feel very burdened, right? And they feel as though, I'm sure you've heard this a million times, you know, I didn't go to medical school to become, you know, a data entry clerk. And they feel as though all the many things, and they're important things, there are reasons for them, you know, to look at MIPS and MACRA, you know, supporting your quality scores and all those things. It just feels as though it seems as though they feel drained. How does this play into trying to help create a culture that is both more supportive of physicians, but also asking them to do certain things that only they can do?
Yeah. You know, I like that question because it calls out the importance of both things. It calls out the importance of the physician being able to focus on delivering the best healthcare, but it also calls out that healthcare is larger than just that conversation. Healthcare is really taking into account all the different data points that a patient might carry with them and that we need for the administration of healthcare or the delivery of good healthcare. And you're exactly right. It's not that clinicians don't want that data in the system. They just don't want to be entering all the data in the system. And so that's part of our mission. Part of our mission is to figure out how do we capture all the right data at the right time with the right tools and put them in the right places so that the data in the EHR is computable, which with technology today, for it to be computable, it needs to be pretty discrete. So how do you make that data computable, and how do you make it actionable? And so I think that's the place that everybody wants to live, where all the data is computable and actionable, but you still have kind of the humanity of healthcare, the great story, the great connection, all of those pieces together.
Exactly. And I think to the extent that this can make physicians happier, that also does then encourage them forward, right? Like they can do certain things as long as they don't feel completely, cranky 100% of the time, right?
Oh, that's right. I mean, we all know that happier physicians deliver better care.
That's right.
And if they're happy, they're much more likely to be happy about or not complain about a small added task. So I completely agree. The happier we can make physicians, the better care, and the happier they're going to be using their technologies.
Exactly. So what does say the next 2 years look like as this technology evolves forward, as you work with patient care organizations and look at their satisfaction, and as people train physicians in the technology? What is the next 24 months kind of going to be like for you?
The next 24 months are going to be so exciting. I think we're going to see some visits automate completely, where a physician is going to be receiving a note seconds after they leave the room, and even be getting some sort of smart intelligence while they're speaking with their patients. I think we're going to see, and this is not as far off on the horizon as some people might think. And then the second piece will be the added value of those clinical intelligence pieces. So, whether you're using some sort of calculator to calculate risk scores for your patients, and in an automated fashion, it's pulling from the EHR and pulling from the conversation and presenting the scoring to the patient at the point of care so that they can talk to their patient, hey, I know that you're really worried that your little girl hit her head, but look at this score with me. The risk of any internal head injury is really low. The ability to deliver that kind of value at the point of care in an automated fashion, I think will be here within the next 24 months as well. So I think there's a lot of exciting things. And then the other thing within our 24-month time horizon is entering the hospital, going in through the emergency department and having this DAX experience that extends up into the hospital through the hospitalist admission experience, and with all the consultants in the hospital and even the nurses in the hospital. Like that, I think, is going to be extremely powerful as well. So lots of exciting things on the 24-month horizon.
I think that is very exciting. And as we move more and more in a shift from volume to value, for example, we're going to need to put, the wind underneath the wings of physicians, because otherwise just more and more pressure will accumulate. So you're obviously on the right side of history in this, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we all know the tremendous pressure that have been under our health system and our caretakers over the last 8 or 9 months. And, it's not over yet. We have another while until the surge kind of comes to an abatement and we get everybody vaccinated or whatever we need to do to be safe from COVID, at least. And we know we're losing caregivers from this experience. And we just can't afford it. We have to give them whatever tools necessary to continue to deliver great care.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 1,000%. Any last thoughts, and then we'll just wrap.
My last thoughts for this audience would just be, thank you for what you do. At this time of year, I always think about, I had a patient that was one of our nurses who was badly injured 7 years ago, and we were able to save her life, and she's back working as a nurse now. And those relationships that you have with your teams are so important. And I've never seen the health system stressed as it is today, under so much pressure. And it wouldn't be possible to be going through as successfully as we are. And I know that we all wish it was going better, but we wouldn't be able to go through it as successfully as we are without all of your efforts, no matter what your role is in the health system. So thank you to everybody out there. And if you have any interest in DACs or even just connecting, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to talk.
Thank you so much. And one of my dear colleagues who is a leader in the industry just wanted to say, fabulous presentation. I've learned so much and have been writing for years that this kind of voice recognition would transform EHR. So glad to see the time has come. And I second that. So thank you so much. This has been a great presentation, and obviously you stimulated a lot of interest among our audience. So thank you so much, Dr. Pello. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Certainly, absolutely. So that is all the time that we have for today. Again, I'd like to thank Dr. Jared Pello for today's excellent webinar, and also to thank our sponsor, Nuance, for making today's program possible. Finally, I want to thank everyone in our audience for joining us. We hope you'll join us again in the future for another healthcare innovation webinar. This concludes today's presentation. Have a terrific day, everyone. Thank you.